Alright, welcome back to the channel folks, and a long overdue video. Haven't posted for a while, but I've been so busy with work and hanging out with the family, and being a little bit lazy, that I haven't had a chance to come down here and do anything. But just to answer a couple of questions I've had on Messenger, no, I haven't given up on these two project cars. They are still here and we are still very much going to be completing these things. So as you can see, they have both moved. I've got this one, this Quattro swapped Escort, set up now, ready to be worked on very soon, because I've got some parts coming up very soon so we can tackle this little predicament we got going on here with the front suspension struts. So I'm very much looking forward to that, because that's been plaguing me for a long time. So hopefully once we get all that set up, we can then finish off the front end, finish off the last little bit in the back, which is just down there, and then we can start moving on to some cosmetic stuff on that, which I'm really looking forward to. So that is in the works. We will be getting onto that very soon. But for now, we're jumping back onto the RS. So I've moved the table, re-leveled the table, and now I've actually squared the car off on the table. So every measurement I need to take from now on, I can take on the table and know that it's going to be square to the car. So that is ideal, especially when it comes to setting up all the suspension and whatnot. So yeah, but in order to go forward on this, we need to go back a little bit and actually cut out all of my roll cage that I've made so far. So we need to go in, cut all these tubes out, and what we need to do is basically clean off all this mill scale around where we need to weld and bevel all the ends so we can get some decent welds on that. So that is going to be next on the agenda. Once we've done that and got the cage welded in the car, we can then work on putting my jig in the back and start making some structural points and whatever, and start moving forward on that. But in the meantime, I have been doing some other bits, including an 8-hour round trip to pick up this lovely little lot. So what we have here is a K20 to BMW gearbox adapter setup. So we've got the PMC gearbox adapter plate, we've got a clutch and flywheel, box of hardware, and a 5-speed BMW gearbox. But what I need, obviously besides a prop shaft, is I think it's called a DSSR. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I need the linkage that goes from the gearbox to the gear selector, which in this case is a quick shifter. So I need the linkage that goes from this to that. So if you happen to have one of those kicking around, let me know in the comment section below, because I'd very much like to buy it off you, because that is kind of the last little piece that I need for all of this really. So like I say, let us know in the comment section below and hopefully we can have a deal. But let's crack on with this, shall we? Let's start cutting all of this hard work out and start moving in the right direction. Well, that is what a lot of hard work looks like laying all over my floor, folks. Good couple of them almost hit me in the head. I don't know if you picked that up on the old time lapse, but I dodged a couple of bullets there, thankfully. But like I say, what I need to do is go around, obviously grind off all my tack welds, because they don't need to be there, and clean off all this mill scale, because if you try and weld on top of mill scale, it's not going to turn out very well. And obviously, like I say, need to bevel all of these ends as well, just so we can get decent penetration from one tube to the next, because I want this thing to be stuck in good. So yeah, obviously cleaning up all of this is going to be quite an ordeal in itself, so I'm not going to subject you guys to that. I'm just going to do that in my own time, and what I'll do is probably pick you up when I'm ready to either get that back in the car, or I've already put it back in the car, because you've already seen that once, so I'm pretty sure you don't want to see it again. But moving forward, I think from now on I'm going to bevel the ends and clean everything up on each individual tube moving forward, just so I haven't got to go through that all over again. But obviously in the car, which is looking quite sorry for itself, oh, it's quite sad seeing it all bare in there again. But inside the car, we've just got a few tack welds around the perimeter boxing. We'll grind all them back, get all that prepped and ready to go, and then we're ready to move forward. So I'll pick you guys back up when that is ready to go back in there. We have progress, people. It's almost as if nothing had ever happened. But we have got the cage back in, tacked in place, and we are ready to go. Obviously I've chucked the cross back in the roof just so I can make sure everything was where it was beforehand. Although I do need to take that back out, because I need to be able to weld around this tube all the way around prior to that one going in. So we'll take that back out in a moment, and then we can start welding some stuff in. So all in all, we are ready to rock and roll. So let's go and get the welder, start welding this sucker in. We have done a thing, folks, and we have made some progress. We have got all of that now finally welded together, and it is looking pretty damn good. Now, I will be the first to admit though, I won't win any awards for the welding. Some of them have come out absolutely on point, like that one for instance, but some of them have come out a little bit worse for wear in terms of looks. I know they're penetrated, but they just don't look particularly pleasant, to be fair. I've not quite mastered the art of moving my hand around as I'm trying to weld, and all my stops and starts are all over the place. So it's a little bit here and there, but like I say, I know it's penetrated, so I'm not worried about that. It's more just the sort of look aspect of it now. But all in all, pretty happy with how that's turned out. Obviously, like I said before, I'm not going to weld it to the perimeter boxing yet, because I still like the idea of being able to move it back and forth so I can weld in door bars. Which brings me to my next predicament. Do I move forward and now do my door bars, which are going to make my life a bit of a misery from this point forward, because obviously I'll have a bar going straight across there, getting right in my way, and I also want to put a tube in from there down into that corner down there as well. So like I say, that's going to make my life a bit of a misery. Or do I do something a little bit more exciting, something that I really actually want to tackle, and that is getting this E36 jig in the car. Now this comes with its own little predicaments. One, I can't centre it in the car because my centre point of the jig is currently hitting the body, so I need to firstly centre off this arch and mark that so I know exactly where this has got to sit. And then two, we've got some issues with trailing arms. So those two bits, well that bit there and that bit there, are my rear trailing arm mounts, which need to go forward a good 5 or 6 inches, which is then going to throw it straight into that little pocket there. So I need to make some relief cuts in the car so I can then slide all this forward to where it needs to be and then get it centered onto the table. So yeah, I need to have a ponder over which direction I need to take with that, because ideally it'd be nice to get the door bars done, but then equally it's just going to be a bit of a pain from this point forward getting in and out of the car. So yeah, I'll have a ponder over that tonight, and I'll pick you guys back up tomorrow when I know what I'm going to do, and we'll crack on with something. Oh my god folks, it is absolutely Baltic down here. I have not been down here and spoken to you guys for well over a month now. So yeah, I have been down here and done some bits though. As you can see, the workshop's changed a little bit. I've been trying to tidy up a little bit and try and neaten up all my stuff, because all my stuff was absolutely everywhere before. So still a little bit of sorting out to do on that front, but I figured I really need to get back into this car. So nothing has changed on the car as such. It's still very much where I left it when I last spoke to you guys, and I remember last time I spoke to you guys I was on about doing the door bar. I'm going to leave off that idea for the moment because like I say, it's going to make my life a misery trying to get in and out of the thing, and I've got a bunch to do inside there still yet. So with that being said, what I am going to do is move on to the back. Now I still need to cut my reliefs in the chassis for the rear trailing arms, so I will get around to that. But what I'm going to do first is make my pads that go onto this jig and come up, that I will then attach into the roll cage. So I want to do that first before I get stuck into moving all this and get that figured out. So what we've got in mind for that is that. So we've got a couple of 3mm discs. They are 90mm in diameter. We're going to weld a couple of nuts to those, and then we've got some tube that we're then going to weld to those, and that is going to make the basis for how I'm going to attach this subframe into the car, this rear end. So as you can see, this mounting point's considerably lower to that one. So this is the idea I'm coming up with. So we'll have the two front long ones, short ones on the rear, and then I can join all these together with a bit of tube, which will then run off and join into the cage somehow, some way. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I'm sure it'll come to me once I start getting things in place. So yeah, like I say, it is absolutely Baltic down here. I'm avoiding sitting at home and being lazy anymore. I really need to get on with something. So let's get all this stuff over to the welding bench, bust the welder out and try and warm up, because it is freezing. All right, here we go then. So that is our 4 bits of pad, essentially, if you want to call it that. Got some all thread with some nuts on there, and then we've got our 2 front sections of tube and our 2 rear sections of tube. So what we're going to do is run these bits of all thread through that, tighten down the nut so I know it's dead tight onto the pad, and then we will TIG weld that on so that's solid on there, and then we'll go ahead and then weld the bits of tube onto the pad afterwards. That way we've always got a captive nut, if you like, that we can shoot our bolts through to get into that, rather than trying to bolt from the underside and then trying to get something down through here. So yeah, let's fire up the TIG welder, because I want to try and TIG weld all of this and hopefully not make a mess of it. So that is one fully done. Let's pick that up with a pair of pliers because it's well hot. So pretty stoked of how that's come out. I mean, yeah, it's no Instagram weld, but then I'm not a professional and I haven't picked up a TIG welder for what, 5 months? So not too bad, very happy with that. So I'm going to knock out the other 3. Obviously this one's done, we'll put that over there so that can cool down. I'll knock out the other 3 off camera, so I don't really want to put you guys through watching me do all of that, and I'll pick you guys back up when they're all done and we can go and mount them on the jig. Hey, finally folks, after months of being a lazy sod, I've finally made some progress. Now, like I said before, they're not of professional quality, these welds, and they're not like something you'd see on Instagram and the likes, because I haven't been welding for a million years. But I'm more than happy with how these have turned out. They're fully penetrated, they don't look terrible. So all in all, happy with how those have turned out. I have gone ahead and marked on the tubes the lowest point that I can bring a tube off, because obviously that is going to be at the front, that's going to be at the rear, and I need to be able to join them up. So same again on this one, I've marked the lowest point that I can have a tube on that. So we need to go from there to there, basically triangulate everything, blah blah blah. So all in all, quite happy with that. I wish I'd actually pulled my finger out and got down here sooner, but here we are. We are slowly making progress. So let's go and get these bolted up onto the jig and see how it's all looking. And they are in. They went in surprisingly well, besides that one, which has given me a bit of jip, the little shitbag. But overall, very happy with how they've come out. Obviously, I need to be able to tube these into the rest of the car somehow. So my thoughts are coming in off the main hoop to here, across, back to the main hoop there, and then I'll make its own little structure around here as well. And then obviously the down bars from the main hoop will also tie all this in somehow, some way. But I'm sure once I get going with this, it will all sort of make sense to me as I'm going along. Whether or not I'm going to keep the suspension top mount points, I don't know, because I'm still in 2 minds as to whether or not I want to do cantilever suspension on the back. So that is something I really ought to make a decision on very, very soon. But before I can do any of that, getting the tube working, I need to be able to centralise this jig, and currently this rear arch panel is right in the way. So tomorrow we're going to remove this side skirt, remove the rear quarter panel, and with any luck that will give us what we need to be able to scoot all that over that way, because then we can centralise all of this to the car and start working out where we need to cut our pockets in down here for the rear trailing arms to go in on each side. So until we can cut those pockets out and get this centralised, we can't do any more with the tube work. So that is going to be a job for tomorrow, try and get this jig squared off in the car so we can start moving forward again. So yeah, with that being said, I'm going to stop waffling, I'm going to go home, go and warm up because I'm absolutely freezing, and I'll pick you guys back up tomorrow when I do actually 100% turn up down here, because I'm not going to be lazy anymore. So I'll see you tomorrow.
Shit, never moving with caution. 2 down, sit, no assuming my role. Bandwidth, EQ and distortion. Bandage through the wounds of my soul. Say again, no room for this haunting. Vantage got me cruising at home. All the roof and the paint.
Right, that is the rear quarter panel off, side skirt off, and I've also gone ahead and removed the other side skirt off the other side off camera. Now, I've not really filmed a great deal tonight because I've mainly just been messing around trying to get this jig in situ. So what I haven't filmed is cutting out these pockets for the rear trailing arms. I've cut out a lot more than I actually needed to, and I will go back and fill that in later on once I know exactly what clearance I need, because if you look at the trailing arms, they obviously dart straight in and loop back to avoid any contact with a wheel. So once I've got all of this in place, I'll work out what clearance I need for all of that, and then we can start boxing in all this again. So that'll be a job for later on. And what I've also done now that I've cut them pockets out is got this jig nice and square in the car. So this is my reference point that I took from the E36, which marries up nicely with my center point for my rear arch there. And then if we go ahead and put the level on that, we are nice and level there. And then moving into the car, as you can see, I've got my laser level out, which is dead center of the car, and it is also dead nut square on my jig, front and back. So we are onto a winner with that. Car is level and the jig is level. So the next step is going to be securing that thing in the car, so that way it can't move left, right, front, back, and we can start doing some tube work. So the plan of attack for that is going to be welding a bit of this box section to the table and then welding it to the jig. That way it'll hold everything where it needs to be and nothing can move. So without further ado, because it is already 10 past 10, let's get the welder out, weld this in place so I can go home, and then we'll get back to it tomorrow and hopefully do some tube work finally. Well done, folks, what a productive evening. I know I've not filmed a great deal, but I've managed to tick off everything I had on my list of to-dos for this evening, and I'm absolutely stoked at that. Still not quite sure what I'm going to do with these trailing arms in terms of linking it into the roll cage, but I'm sure I'll figure that out when the time comes. But this is absolutely solid on here, so that is perfect. It is obviously all leveled, centered, can't ask for any more than that. Now I think the next thing is going to be linking this tube to this tube to this tube, and then I can start joining it into the roll cage somehow, some way. I'm sure, again, that'll come to me when the time arises. But as I showed you earlier, it is already late. I need to go home, go to bed, and I shall pick you guys back up tomorrow, and we're going to start chucking some tubes in that thing finally. See you tomorrow.
Are you fooling? Calling you. Are you fooling? Calling you. Just wanna pack up my things and go. Just wanna be free, just wanna zone. Just wanna flow, just wanna hang with the gang, but sometimes chill on my own. Just wanna do me, just wanna doze. Just wanna live and see how it goes. And the goals just keep on going, yeah. This life we live is a war. When there's love in the rave, you know. When there's love in the rave, you know. All inside you, all in the soul, 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 soul. You know when the calling's calling you, and the calling's calling more. You know when the calling's calling you, it's calling, calling more, 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 more. You know when the calling's calling more, more. You know when the calling's calling. Boss bitch energy, yeah, for the evening. know when the calling's calling.
We have progress, not a great deal mind you. I mean, we've only got 4 tubes in so far, but we are on the right path now. We have got our subframe mounts tied in to the main hoop, which is absolutely ideal. And what I think I'm going to do is actually start welding in this roll cage to my perimeter boxing sooner rather than later, rather than messing around. But yeah, we are onto a winner, so it is starting to make a bit more sense to me now. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a bit of 1-inch tube and do a cross across the top of the diff, just so that sort of strengthens all that area up. Where I'm going to have a sort of U-bend on the perimeter box in there, I'm then going to run 2 tubes down to pick up on that. That will triangulate all of that. And then with the rear suspension, I've made an executive decision. We're going to keep the standard E36 strut tops and just be done with it, because I think I'm just going to overcomplicate things otherwise and go down a rabbit hole with cantilever suspension. So what we've got for that is a nice big fat bit of tube, which we're going to cut 70mm sections off, and that is basically going to form the top part of our tower, if you like. So that will sit round there. We'll have a bit of 3mm plate welded to the top of it, which will then pick up this, and in turn we can then tie in all of our roll cage, so we can go from the front of that up to the main hoop, from strut tower to strut tower, and then we can also drop down and pick up on the back end of our subframe. So it's all starting to make a bit of sense now, but until I get those 3mm plates cut out of some steel, because I'm going to ask someone if they can laser cut that for me rather than me messing around with it, we're kind of at a bit of a crossroads really. So I'm going to make some phone calls in the morning, see if I can get some plates made up for the top of those, and then we can start pushing on and hopefully get some more tubes in there. See you next time. Couldn't help myself folks, I had to have a play just to confirm a couple of things in my head. So we got the masking tape out and we've essentially made a visual representation of what the hell it was I was just talking about. So as I said, come down from the main hoop, down to the strut tower, across the strut towers, cross above the diff, that then goes down to the hoop that I'll have for the drive shaft, prop shaft, however you want to call it. And then we need to link the back end of the rear subframe up to the shock tower, and then we need to do something about connecting all this to the back end of the car. I'm not too sure if it's going to be like that or what, but that is a rough idea of what it is I'm hoping to achieve. And then we've got door bars, although I'm not exactly happy with that idea, that might change, and then some sort of bar across the main hoop. Again, don't know if that will stay like that or if I'll put a cross in that as well. So yeah, anyway, it's already too late. I'm going to go home. I'll pick you guys back up next time down here. Alright, huge shout out to Chris Tullett at CT Fabrication over in, well, near Worthing on the south coast for cutting these out. You're an absolute legend. So if anyone needs any fabrication or laser cutting near Worthing, give him a shout. I'll leave his links in the description below. Top man. So these are basically going to go on there. Annoyingly, I didn't give him the measurements of where the bolt holes were or where this centre hole is, so I need to make them myself. But basically, that needs to go on top of a section of that big old tube that I've cut off and cleaned up. So that will go on there like that, and then these will go on there like that and form the top mount for our rear shocks basically. Then from that point we can go from there to the other side with a tube and then up to the main hoop and tie everything all in. So next order of business is marking up and drilling some holes in this top plate, and then we'll start welding it together. probably made that look harder than it actually was. But there we have our 2 plates. So obviously I've drilled out 4 of the mounting points on the shock. I haven't drilled out the centre yet because I haven't got the right size drill bit to go through the centre, so I shall get one of those tomorrow. Drill the centre of these out and then we're good to go. However, that doesn't stop us moving on. What we can do is actually weld these plates to this bit of tube so we can get these in the car and start moving forward. Now I have had these cut ever so slightly short so then they don't match the diameter of the tube, so they sit in a little bit, just like so, and then that little sort of indentation there, if you like, I can fill with weld, and that way I know it's fully penetrated all the way through. Job's a good one. So let's bust the welder out. I'm going to TIG weld it just because I think it's going to hopefully look a little bit neater, but we shall see. So let's weld these together, let them cool down, and then we can chuck them in the car. So that is both the rear suspension strut tops done, with the exception of having to cut a hole out of the centre for the shock to stick up into it. But other than that, all is looking good on there. Yeah, pretty happy with that. So I'm going to spend a bit of time and sand these off and make them all a bit smooth, just so, well, you can't see the welds basically. Make them look a bit fancy, and then I shall pick you guys back up when we're ready to throw these things back in the car. We have 2 strut tops, people. Look at that. Absolutely made up with that. Obviously I still need to go around and tidy up the edges a little bit, and I still need to do that hole in the centre, but my god, absolutely stoked for that. I shall get a hole saw or something to go through that tomorrow, and we'll get that done before we move on to any tube work. And then that is the strut top bits essentially done at this point. So as I said previously, I need to tie that one into that one and then pick up onto the rear of the subframe somehow, some way, and then go from there up to the main hoop and just start tying everything in, strengthening all of this lot. However, it is ridiculously cold and it is ridiculously late now, so I'm going to bugger off home, and I'll pick you guys back up once I've got these holes cut in here and we're ready to move on to some more tube work. Next phase, people, we are moving on to joining this strut top to this strut top with this bit of tube. Annoyingly, I forgot to pick up a hole saw to actually cut the hole I need in the centre of this, so we still can't do that, but that's not going to let us, that's not going to hamper us moving forward. I can drill that later on anyway, so that's not the end of the world. But we need to get this tube in just like that, and then we can start tying in the back of the subframe up to this main tube here and the strut tops, and secure all of that in place. So without further ado, let's start making some noise with a grinder and see if we can cope these tubes to fit these strut tops. that is the rear strut brace all done then, folks. So that's come out pretty decent. Now obviously I still need to drill out the centre points on here before I can really move on with too much else, because I need to be able to take this out, get it over to the bench and drill the centres out. But luckily I have had my drill bit turn up. Now this is an Amazon special, but you got to see the size of this thing. It's absolutely massive. Look at that. This thing goes up to 65mm. And like I say, this is an Amazon special. I just found this on Amazon last night and ordered it. But my God, what a massive old thing this is. Now I only need to drill out 45mm in the centre of these just to take the centre of the shock to come through. So I think without further ado, let's take this strut brace bit off, get it over to the bench, drill the holes out, and then we can start moving on to our tubes that need to go from there and up to the main hoop. So let's hope this thing don't snap my wrist in a minute when I put it in the drill. Take it from me, folks, the old Milwaukee drills do not like a drill bit of that size, I can tell you. So that is 3 different drills I had to go through to actually do this, but we are there. We've got a 45mm hole in each side so our shocks can pass up through. And it just so happens I've had my new shocks, or new to me, new second-hand shocks delivered. So I've got some HSD true coilovers. So that is obviously the bit that we need to pass through. Now I didn't need to drill the hole that big, but I do know on some of these true coilovers you can actually get a camber adjustment plate on the top there. So I've allowed the original size hole that you'd find on an E36 for that. But yeah, so we've got some HSD coilovers. Funnily enough, they've got little Gaz shock boots over that, but happy days. So when we eventually get to the point of when they can go on the car, I've got them. But with that being said, let's go and put this back in the car and then we can start moving on with some more tube work. Another job ticks off the list then, folks. We've got our holes in our strut tops and we're ready to link this thing into the rest of the chassis now. Now my plan for that is come off the back side here and go up to our roll cage where we've attached our A-bar bits. So where this comes up, I've actually got a little bend on it here which bends it down and then it comes down to about here. So what I want to do is come off on the opposing side of that and run a tube down to the top of my strut top. Once we've got those in place on both sides, where I've got my cross in the roof, I'm going to use that point there to come across to this strut top, and same again for that side down to this strut top. So I'll have my main bars coming down and my cross coming down, all intersecting onto this and attaching to the main hoop. So that is the plan at least, but rather than me constantly just sitting here filming me grinding tubes, I think we're going to go for the old YouTube snap trick. So in 3, 2, 1, there is going to be a couple of tubes in here. 3, 2, 1. Oh yes, folks, we've got the next pair of tubes in and it is looking good. Now I am glad I did not film that, because that took me so long notching round that at a funny angle and then notching round that one up there as well. This, honestly, it takes forever, this stuff, if you don't know what you're doing. At least anyway, I'm sure someone in the know would be able to smash this out in no time, but we are looking good nevertheless. So that is now the strut tops tied in to the rest of the cage, and like I said previously, I've tied them in where my A posts were. So obviously my A post comes up here, goes across to the main hoop, as you see there, and then it gets to there and it's got a little bend downwards. So where that then links into my main hoop is where I've run my new tube down to the strut top, and it all ties in rather nicely. So that is all happy days. It is looking mighty fine. Very, very happy with how it's turned out so far. But I've got a bit of a conundrum now, so I'm hoping you guys might be able to give me some suggestions on this. I need to link the back part of this subframe area into this cage. Now the way I see it is I've got two options. One, come down from the strut top to that tube there, go from that tube to that tube, and then from that tube back up to the strut top. Or option two, go from strut top to there, from there to the center of this strut brace tube, if you want to call it that, back down to the subframe mount, and then back up to the suspension top. In effect, giving me like a zigzag, if you like. Now, I don't know which way to go with that, and I've spent way too much time pondering over what to do with that. I hate to think how many hours I've wasted down this workshop just staring at all of this, just wondering how I can go about doing certain things. My God, it is no easy feat. So kudos to anyone that does this on a daily. As I've said previously, it is, yeah, it's a work of art trying to get the knack of all this. But like I say, it is silly late now, so although I've welded in the most part of these two new tubes, I still need to weld up round the bottom here. But it's too late for me to try and contort myself in around there somewhere to try and get underneath that. So I'm going to leave that for tonight, and I'm going to leave you guys for tonight, and I shall pick you back up next time we're down it, and we'll crack on with something else. Well, boys and girls, it is another cold, wet and damp evening down the workshop, but I have made a decision finally, and we are going to be moving on to the cross on the back of this roll cage. Now, one thing to take note of when doing the cross is that the single tube always needs to go to the top of the driver's head. So obviously I'm going to be sitting here, that needs to go up to there. Same again with the roof bars, like the roof cross. So this tube here that goes to the above the driver's head is one single piece, passenger side is two pieces. So that's going to be the same deal here, one single piece from the driver's head down to the rear strut tower, whatever you want to call that, and then this side will be two pieces, one from here to the center of that tube, and then one again over to the main hoop. So it's all part of like safety regulations and all that sort of nonsense. Not that this is probably ever going to pass any safety regulations, but we can all but try, can't we? So this is going to take a good while, because this is going to be quite a challenging tube to notch in, I think. So I need to cope it to suit where I need to go in up there, and then I also need to cope it to suit where I need it to sit on the back of, or on the front edge of this rear suspension turret. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge, and like I say, I've got to do this one in one piece, and then I've got to do one piece for this side to the centre of that, and then from the centre of that up to the main hoop. So it's going to be a challenge. So I'm going to pop you guys on a tripod, I'm going to jump in there, shower myself in metal filings and whatever else, and hopefully we'll get this knocked out in one go, because that's some big sections of tube that I could potentially mess up very quickly. Right, let's see how it goes. Wish me luck. We've had our first screw up, folks. So the first bit I'd done for that cross, I managed to screw up. The notch was absolutely fine, that was perfect. But when it come to cutting the tube down to fit on the strut tower, in my infinite wisdom, I managed to cut that about 20mm too short. So yeah, not one of my finest moments, but I have gone ahead, made up a new tube. That is all welded in now, that is all good to go. How much of that I got on film, I don't know, because I'm pretty certain my battery died halfway through that. But I'm hoping all is not lost with that tube, because obviously I need to make the next section from the strut top to that tube, and then from that tube up to the main hoop. Now I need to cut that in half, obviously, and this tube is 45mm, so I'm hoping that we can still get away with using that tube. Fingers crossed, hopefully we ain't wasting that. Now as you can see, I've got a string line set up, so we know our center point on that tube there. And what I've also done in my infinite wisdom is take a template of that tube where it touches the main hoop. I've spun that round, so this is now a template to make our next tube to go from there to there. Fingers crossed this works out. In theory, should work. So let's get back on the grinder, see if we can salvage that length of pipe and get this cross finished off. Oh yes. We have a rear cross in there, people, look at that. Oh yes, and just for good measure, I've also gone and done a rear cross picking up on the rear subframe mount as well. So that is essentially all this back part done, with the exception of mounting these two front subframe mounting points into something. I think what I'll do is make a hoop for the prop to go through and then shoot those down to that. And then the other main hurdle is going to be trying to figure out these rear trailing arms. So my initial plan was to come off the tube work somehow, some way, and pick up on these points, which is for the rear trailing arm. However, on the original BMW ones, they are slotted, which allows for some level of adjustment on the toe. So I need to try and incorporate those mounts into all of this tube work somehow. So if you've got any suggestions on that whatsoever, shoot them in the comment section below, because honestly, I don't really know how I'm going to go about fitting those into this at this very moment in time. So any suggestions are more than welcome at this point. So that is going to be me calling it a wrap for this video, folks. It's taken me long enough to get to this point. So if you've watched to the end, then thank you very much. And hopefully we'll get back to it very, very soon, and I'll actually stop slacking and get things done. And we'll get some more tackled in this thing. So like, comment, subscribe, stay tuned for more, and I'll see ya on the next one. Peace.